Hello and happy 2018 to you. On behalf of all of us at LedgeView Partners, we want to wish you a happy and healthy 2018. I'm Christina Felchlin, Director of Consulting Services with LedgeView Partners, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Dynamics CRM 365 User Group webinar. It is a new year, and that means New Year's resolutions. We know all of you are actively involved in your Dynamics 365 CRM environment, and we want to see it succeed in 2018. Michael has pulled together some great resolutions you can stick to. He will give ideas on how to get your users to fully buy into CRM, including achieving leadership involvement, system design and planning, and the key to it all, communication. Is your biggest pain point manual and duplicate entry? Michael has some ideas to reduce redundancy with automation. We hear this often in orgs: my storage is too high. What can I do to reduce it? We have the insight to the main offenders. Of course, Michael has some items to consider to help reduce your storage percent. Then we have ideas to help you clean up your data to gain users' confidence in the tool. Let's help you pick one or all of these resolutions for the new year. I'm happy to turn it over to our Dynamics 365 CRM expert, Michael Dodds, support consultant with LedgeView Partners.
Thank you, Christina, for that wonderful introduction. It is New Year's resolution time, and if you're anything like me, you've probably already failed your New Year's resolution. So we're here today to give you some New Year's resolutions that you can stick to all year round and see benefit lightning fast. So let's jump on in. So our first New Year's resolution is I want to get my users to fully buy in. What should I do? If you think about user adoption, it's not just a one-time thing, and it's not just done at the beginning of a project or at the end of a project or the beginning of an enhancement or the middle. It's done before, during, and after a launch, and continuous after the launch. It's something that you should never stop striving for, is user adoption. So we've set this as before launch, during launch, and after launch, but that could also be applied to enhancements as well. It doesn't have to just be a launch. So what are some key items to consider before a launch takes place? One of those is leadership involvement. You want to set an executive sponsor and key stakeholders. That way your leadership has a vested interest in the project. They're the ones that are driving this. They're a key stakeholder in the project. They want to make sure that they see this be successful. And have your leadership communicate the vision and user expectations to your users. Have them develop that vision, communicate it out, and go, this is why we're doing this. This is the vision for the company, and this is how this CRM is going to help us get there. And here's what we expect of you to help us achieve this vision. Have your leadership acknowledge current pain points. The current system doesn't allow us to do X, Y, and Z. That's why we're implementing the CRM system to help us achieve X, Y, and Z. We hear you. We've heard the pain points. We want to take action on this. But don't stop there. Acknowledge that change is uncomfortable. A lot of people don't like change, especially a change in the system. They're used to it. Even the pain points they're used to dealing with day in and day out. The unexpected is not always comfortable. Acknowledge that. Say, yes, change is going to be uncomfortable, but we're implementing this so in the future, 1 month, 2 months, a year down the road, you are going to be even more efficient in your job and you're going to be able to exceed and excel. Create buzz and excitement. Be excited about all the changes that are being made. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but be excited about it. Be excited about the future and where this is taking your company. That will then trickle down into your other management and then to your users that are using the system on a day-to-day basis and drive that excitement and anticipation. System design and planning. When you're planning and you're designing what it's going to look like, survey your users. Understand get some requirements and objectives from them. But be mindful. You need to be realistic and set priorities and be clear about what is a need. Sometimes when you survey users, they may say something is a need, but it's actually more of a want. So be very clear and have them set realistic needs when you're gathering requirements and objectives. We say bring everything back to the lens of the user. And basically what that means is focus on the day of the life of the user that is using your system. There could be different lenses out there, different days in the life of all the different people that are using your system. But keep that in mind when you're designing it, because you're designing this for the people that are using it day in and day out. You don't want to design it from a 10,000 foot view. Design it from the people that are using it day in, day out. Make CRM a one-stop shop. One thing that we have a lot of people come to us is like, I have to go to 5 different places to get the same different information, or I have to enter it in 5 different places. I just want to go to one place where I can get all the information I need to proceed in my day. Make CRM that one-stop shop. It can be done that way. This way, your users have confidence that this is the system that has the most up-to-date and accurate information, and they can use it to achieve their job. Clean and accurate data. Nothing, I promise you, you can follow every single tip and trick that we give for you for user adoption. But if your data is not clean and accurate, nothing kills user adoption faster. If they can't trust the information in the system, they're going to stop using the system, which means the data is going to become even more inaccurate. So clean and accurate data, that is one of the most important pieces to focus on with user adoption. Accessibility. We're in a world today where people are accessing information in so many different ways, from their phone, from their tablets and iPads, from their laptops. They need constant access. So having different ways, avenues of accessibility is very important, because then they can trust, hey, if I'm on the road, I can jump on my phone, I can access information in CRM, or I can enter information. That way, I know I'm putting in accurate information and I'm seeing it and I'm using the system. I can see the benefits. Plan for users' excuses and eliminate them. There's always going to be items of, well, it doesn't work this way. I need it to work this way. Or I can't figure this out. There's always going to be user excuses. Plan ahead for those and then completely eliminate them through communication, through training, through information. You can eliminate those excuses and help drive user adoption. WIFM, really great acronym. What's in it for me? This is the biggest hurdle you have to overcome. Explain to your user, what's in it for me? Why is this important to me? You overcome that hurdle, you will get your users to use the system. If they are getting a benefit out of the system and see what's in it for them, they will want to use it. Plan for training. Everybody does training. A new system, they want to do a training. But did you plan how you want the training to proceed? Who's going to run the training? Where is it going to be located? Is it in person or remote? Who's doing the training? Is it a third party or is it management? What different groups of people are we putting in there? Are we doing, 5 different sessions based on skill level, based on their role? And then that affects the agenda and how long it is. If you have a group of people who are resistant to change, you might want to have longer sessions, because there's going to be a little bit more hand-holding in each of the sessions, just because they're resistant to change and they might not process the information as quickly. So plan for the training could have a great impact on the actual training. And then, as Christina mentioned, one of the cornerstones of user adoption is communication. Speak early and often about CRM, about even just hey, stay tuned for this. You don't have to give a date. Just stay tuned for CRM. We got a great new program, a great new software coming into place that's going to help you. Be transparent about why you're doing it. Be short and to the point. You want to focus on the what, when, and why, and definitely the why, but don't go into a ton of detail. Be short and to the point, because that way your point comes across. They're going to read the entirety of the communication, or listen to the entirety, and understand the what, when, and why. Have a consistent message from the CEO all the way to the guy in the mailroom. The messaging needs to be the same. This is why we're doing CRM. These are the benefits. This is how it's going to affect you. You want to keep a consistent messaging across the board. Leadership involvement. As great as your coworkers are and as great as it is to talk to them about the information, the message coming from a coworker versus coming from the CEO, it's a different, it carries a different weight to it. So having leadership involved in that communication is very important. And then there's some different communication tactics that you can use. We talked about the stay tuned message. You can also do a company intranet announcement. Through your newsletter, you can do announcements. Company and departmental meeting agendas. It doesn't necessarily have to be talked about in great detail during those, but keep it front of mind. You can also do that through regular updates and being transparent and giving that information to your users, keeping it front of mind. Last thing you want to do is do a stay tuned and then have everybody go, I heard this was coming. I haven't heard anything in months about this. So having that consistent communication can really help. During the launch, it starts with testing. During the launch is not necessarily the day of the launch. It's the pieces right around the launch. So testing is very, very important. Involve your users, especially those who are on the project team. So you want to do a testing plan for those people that are doing the testing. Because you don't want to just have them go out there and willy-nilly test different things. They could be testing the exact same things and the items could be missed. If you have a plan, you know everything's being tested. Then give them an avenue for recording their results. And then discuss that feedback information. Discuss it with the users that did the testing, with the project team. And most importantly, get sign-off from the testers and the project team prior to proceeding. Training. We talked about, planning for the training. Now the training's here. Have leadership involved. They can even run the training. But if they don't want to be that involved, have them stop by, introduce the training, or even just stop by and observe. That way your users are saying, wow, leadership is taking the time to really come in and take a look at this training. This is important. I need to hold it into the same esteem and make sure that I'm focusing on this training. Have your company lead the training. There's two schools of thought on this one. Should we have the people that implemented the system do the training, or should we have somebody from the company do the training? There's a really popular tool called Train the Trainer, where you train the individuals, as the company that helped implement and design the system, train a power user or a few power users to then train all the other users. Because those power users are there. They live the day in the life of the people using the system. They're going to be able to answer even more questions around uniqueness to the company. But they're power users and they've been trained at all the different levels of the system to be able to train the users on how to use it. So having a combination can really help. And we see that user adoption goes up when the company leads the training. Explain, show, do methodology. You want to explain what you're doing or how to do it. Show your users how to do it, and then have them do it. It will help drive the information home. Then what's next? Always inform them what's next. When is this going to launch? Is there additional training out there that we can get? Can we get refresher training? Is this going to be are we going to talk about this during coaching sessions? Keep that information. Don't just say, hey, you're trained, all right, you're done. There's no more support. And then tell them the expectations, what's expected of them. Now we're at the day of the launch. Make sure leadership is present and engaged. As you've seen, this is a consistent message. Having leadership involved really helps to drive user adoption. Ensure that your support and power users are available. We've seen it too many times where your support team or power users were maybe in a training or on vacation during day of launch. Now your users are running into an issue and they don't have the support. That puts a real damper on user adoption because their first experience with the system is negative and they don't have anybody there to help them. Expect issues and some user frustration. If there isn't frustration, if there isn't issues, that means our users are not using the system. Communicate the plan, expectations, and recap. So at the beginning of the day, send out an email. We've reached the day of the launch. Be excited about it. And also tell people that here's how you log in. If you have a low number of users, you can send a personalized email with their email and password, or username and password. If it's a larger company, you can do items such as here's the formatting of how to log in or the avenue to get your login. Your support team will love you for doing that, because most of the questions that people get on the day of launch is, how do I log into the system? And then at the end of the day, say, great job. It was a great first day of CRM. We entered this many leads, or we closed this many opportunities. Send a recap, show how the system was utilized, and keep the excitement level up. After the launch, there's different user support during go live and after go live. So have a plan in place. Communication regarding resources. How do you get to the resources? Where are they? And also just communicate that there is those resources available. If they don't know, they're not going to use them. Keep your users engaged. Coaching and refresher training. Make sure it's available. Make sure they know how to get that refresher training, and then talk about it during coaching sessions. Have an open forum for feedback. Not just positive feedback, but also enhancements or things they may not like about the system, and also ways to submit support tickets for help. Survey your users. After a couple months, 2-3 months, surveys. You've been using the system for a few months. What do you think of the new system? What is it lacking? What do you love? Get some information back. Engage your users by having them participate in user groups and attending conferences. Keep their knowledge of CRM up so they're continuously excited to use the system. And then keep communication lines open regarding the future. Consistently tell them that we're not done. We're going to keep growing and enhancing the system. It's not just, here it is, we're done. Hold people accountable. You've set this CRM up. You're going down the path of user adoption. You want people to use this. So set clearly defined expectations so they do use it. Users do perform much better when they have clearly defined expectations of what they need to do in the system on a day-to-day basis. And then set attainable and easy to understand goals. If they don't understand the goal or it's not attainable, then it's going to dampen the morale of it. And also, they're not going to be able to achieve it and be more confused, which can have an effect on user adoption. Set stretch goals as well. So set an attainable goal, but also set a stretch goal to push even farther for. Then use CRM as a coaching tool. If you have a user that's saying, hey, I got all these excellent opportunities coming down the pipeline, but you only see 2 opportunities in the system, explain to them that it's only a realistic opportunity if it's in CRM. That way you're holding them accountable, you're coaching them up that they need to enter the information in the system. And have a competition. Have a competition about using the system. Who enters the most leads? Who keeps their information up to date the most? It's going to drive home the basics of CRM. It's going to satisfy the what's in it for me. It's competition. Even if it's, a group lunch at the end of it. It's satisfying the what's in it for me, and it's going to drive people to use the system. And then keep evolving. As hard as it is, stick to your roadmap. You set this roadmap, keep on it. Make logical enhancements between phases. Yes, you're sticking to your roadmap, but if there's something in between that a user says, it would be really great if we had this, it's actually hampering us, that's a logical enhancement. Implement it so you don't lose productivity before the next phase. Continue to monitor that feedback. User adoption doesn't stop. Feedback doesn't stop. Monitor it, but most importantly, address it. Because if you don't, people will stop giving you feedback. Keep to your vision. You set a vision at the beginning, stick to it. And then you're tired of me saying it, but communicate, communicate, communicate. Our next New Year's resolution is, I want to be able to automate CRM and reduce redundancy within the system. There's 3 great tools to utilize for automation. We're going to start with workflows. Now, stay tuned. Next webinar, we're going to go into workflows in even more detail and do some demos as well. So some pros for workflows, it can go across entities. So you can do some Conditional, based on different related entities. You can create new records of different entities. You can update records that are associated to the workflow entity, the entity that the workflow is on, excuse me. They can be triggered. You can say, hey, when a record's created, I want you to trigger. Or when a new user is assigned or a field's updated, you can trigger them. You can set conditions. If an opportunity is won, then proceed. You can send emails. Sending notification emails is one of the most utilized workflows that's out there. You can also run child workflows. If there's something that you're doing over and over and over again throughout multiple workflows, you don't have to recreate it in each workflow. Just create a child workflow and call it to run. They can be complex to create. It does require some configuration knowledge. You're limited by relationships. You're limited by the one-to-many relationship, meaning there needs to be a lookup, so the end side can then look up to the one side of a one-to-many relationship. If you're going down through the one-to-many relationship, then you're limited by that, just like regular CRM logic, like advanced find and items like that. It's not ideal for calculations. You're really you're doing increment by. There's better tools for calculations. And it's also not ideal for waiting. If you need to wait for something to occur, I would not recommend using a workflow. When you want to when to use it, when you need to set specific triggers, you want to do the sending of an email notification. Hey, you've been assigned a lead. Ability to run it on demand. You don't want to always have to have a trigger. You want to be able to run it whenever you want to. You can do that with a workflow. Need to cross entities. You need to be able to create new records in CRM, or you need to dynamically update the existing record on the entity the workflow is for, or a related record based on the relationship, utilizing fields from the current record or a related record. That can be confusing, but basically what it means is you can dynamically put in the value of a field on the current record or a related record through dynamic information of the current record or related records. It's a really, really powerful tool. Business rules, you really want to start with business rules because it's the easiest one to create. They're instantaneous. They can be isolated to one form for an entity. You can also do some calculations with it. There are some formulas that you can do. You can throw an error message. A really great example for that is, let's say you work with government contracts, but you're not approved to do them in, let's say, the state of Oregon. If a user has an opportunity with a government contract opportunity type in the state of Oregon, you can fire an error message so they can't save it. Really powerful. You can change the visibility and requirements of a field. Some cons, though, you cannot cross entities. You are on the entity that you are on. You're limited to actions on the form. In the fields on the business rule must be on the form. There is a small caveat to this. With entities, you can get around. With the entity scope, you can get around this. You're limited to 10 else if statements, meaning if this condition applies, do this. Otherwise, look at a different condition. You can do 10 of those. And you must be on the form for the updates to occur. Again, the entity scope does allow you to bypass this. When to use, you're really, when you need to set field requirement or visibility, that's a really important piece. One thing I want to back up and say that's really important with business rules, if you set business requirements or visibility, you want to make sure if the condition isn't met, that it changes the visibility and requirements back. That's one of the biggest things that's missed with business rules. So if I set a field to be visible, if another field equals yes, well, if it's changed to no, I want to then hide that field instead of keeping it shown. So revert everything back based on if the condition is not met. When updates are specific to the form, that's also when you're going to want to use it. If you want changes to occur on change of the form. You want to show an error message. You want to make simple calculations. Really what a business rule is simple JavaScript replacement. There are still things that JavaScript can do that business rules can't, but it is something that occurs on the form, and it really was created to be a JavaScript replacement so you can create these items without needing to use JavaScript. And last but not least is data mapping. This is really where you're going to reduce data entry redundancy. So let's say on a lead, you're doing great, you're gathering all this information. Then it creates an account, contact, and opportunity, and you're going, I have to enter this information again? I just put it on the lead. That's where data mapping can come into play. You can automatically pull over specific information from one entity to another entity, the records of those entities, excuse me. However, you have to create the record for the new entity from a record on the existing entity, meaning I need to create a contact from the account page. So on an account, if I click the plus sign for contact, then it will pull that information over. But if I just go to contacts and click the plus sign, it doesn't know which record I need to refer to bring information over. So one thing to keep in mind. You're limited to one-to-many relationships. You can do data mapping on those one-to-many relationships. There's some gotchas. The data types have to be the same, meaning option set to option set, single line of text, single line of text, whole number, whole number. You need to have like data types. And also, you're limited to, like for a single line of text, you can have a max number, max field length. If the target max field length is less than the source, you're not going to be able to do that. And also you can have the same source on many different target fields, but a target field cannot have many different sources put to it because then this is overwriting itself. So there are some gotchas out there. When are you going to want to use this? When you want to pull over data from one entity record to a new record on a related entity when it's created from the originating one. So meaning you're on account and you want to create a new contact and you want to pull over that account name, address, etc. So another example is qualifying a lead. You put all that information on a lead, you want to pull it over to account, contact, and opportunity. Really great use for it. Our next New Year's resolution is I want to reduce the attachments that are taking up my storage. Storage consideration. Managing your storage usage is very important, especially if you're online, because of cost. Sometimes you have to buy additional storage depending on what you're utilizing for storage. You need more to be able to utilize the system. If your system job tables grow too large, they can affect performance. The two biggest offenders for storage usage are system jobs, and if you refer back to our top tips that every admin should know, we talk about a bulk delete action that will clear up system jobs. I highly recommend putting that in place. And also file attachments. You can utilize advanced find to clean up those attachments. Keep in mind, however, it's going to delete the emails or notes along with it. There is the ability to delete only the email attachments while leaving the email in CRM. Great option. And then there's alternative file storage options. What is that alternative file storage option? SharePoint. So the ability to add attachments to notes and emails within CRM, it causes a debate. I want to have convenience of seeing my attachments right in CRM, but it's killing my storage. What should I do? SharePoint integration is what comes in to help alleviate this issue. SharePoint integration allows you to put documents into SharePoint with a link directly to the record in CRM. So you can still click on the attachment or click on the document and see it, and it will not adversely affect your CRM storage. There's a couple ways to remove attachments. Advanced find, keep a note, it will delete the note and the email as well. So here's some advanced finds on how to do that for notes and email messages. The custom coded solution is the best one to remove the attachments without removing the email. Basically what it does is it utilizes a workflow that can be run on the records to strip and delete only the attachment. You can take it one step further with more code, and it can be scheduled to run on a maintenance schedule based on your policies and needs. For SharePoint integration, there's just a couple of tips. SharePoint integration with CRM Online and SharePoint Online is the easiest, meaning it's going to take the least amount of time. Hybrid options, on-premise and online, and completely on-premise is possible, but they're more difficult to set up, specifically hybrid options that are SharePoint on-premise. They are the most difficult to set up, which basically means it's going to take the longest amount of time to set up. So just something to keep in mind. SharePoint integration has to be set up for OneDrive and OneNote integration to function. So if you're looking to do either of those, you have to have SharePoint integration set up first. Some benefits of SharePoint integration, I've touched on some of these already, but you can store documents associated to specific records in SharePoint without adversely affecting your CRM storage. They're easily accessible from those records in CRM, and you can edit those SharePoint documents right from CRM. Like we talked about in user adoption, one-stop shop. That's what CRM needs to be. That's what SharePoint integration allows you to do. Our last New Year's resolution, I want to clean up my data to help improve user confidence. So we touched on this in user adoption. Clean and accurate data is the biggest killer of user adoption. So naturally, a New Year's resolution would be, how do I keep my data clean, or how do I clean it up? So duplicate detection rules is the starting point for keeping your data clean and starting to clean it up. Like everything, including business rules and workflows and data mapping, you want to plan this out first. So plan the entities you'd like to check for duplicate detection. Plan out your rules ahead of time. You go to create the duplicate detection, you're seeing that you cannot choose a specific entity. It can simply mean that duplicate detection is not turned on within the entity section of Customize the System. So if you don't see it, you want to check there first. If a field you're utilizing as a duplicate detection rule that you want to check, so email, for example, if email is not required, utilize the ignore blank values. Because let's say Christine and I are both in the system. So Christina's in there with no email, and then you create my record, Mike Dodds, and you don't put my email in. It's going to trigger the Christina and I are the same, and we most definitely are not the same, but our emails are both blank. So recommend using the ignore blank values. I don't recommend utilizing the case sensitive settings unless it's explicitly a piece that would benefit your company. And that's simply because, for example, Inc., like, Mike's Truck Stop Inc., we'll say. A lot of people will do lowercase inc, all caps inc, capital I, lowercase nc. If you do case sensitive, you're never gonna have duplicate detection work. You can't rely on people to spell it exactly the same with the exact same case settings. Okay. Consider looking duplicates among inactive records. Meaning, let's say Christina's body shop is an account within CRM, but they stopped working with you about a year ago. Well, you're a new salesperson, you started working with that account and you want to add them to CRM, but you didn't realize that they were an existing account that was just made inactive. So you start to enter the information, duplicate detection rules trigger, and it says, hey, there's an inactive record out there. Well, now you saved yourself a whole bunch of time. You didn't lose all the history with the account. You just reactivate that account. And there's all the history along with it because it was kept in the system. And look to set up cross-entity rules. Lead to contact is a big one. You can set up and say, hey, if the lead on an email matches the email on a contact, the email on a lead matches the email on a contact, I want to be notified. Because I don't want to create this lead and then go to qualify it and do all this work, then realize it's already in the system. This way, when you create the lead, you're being notified right away. It's a really important piece. And I did mention earlier with case settings, I said spelling, I meant to say the case settings are what drives the case sensitive settings, not the spelling. So I apologize for adding spelling into there. Duplicate detection jobs, they are run off of your duplicate detection rules. You can only run them on entities that have published duplicate detection rules. If it's not published, you can't run a job on that entity. Utilize existing views as a starting point or for the actual filtering, because you're stating this, I'm setting the filtering for the records that I want you to run this duplicate detection rules against. So use system views or personal views as a starting point. Have the duplicate detection job run off hours. That way it's not affecting the performance of your system. Email yourself when the duplicate detection job is complete. If you're running this off hours, you probably don't want to be awake at 1 o'clock in the morning and then checking to make sure it's completed. Just have it email you. And then run the duplicate detection jobs at least once a month. Now you can affect this, you can make changes to this. Let's say you get 5 records back. Well, maybe you run it every other month. Or if you get 100 records back, maybe you want to increase this to be run twice a month. So you can play around with it, but a starting point is once a month.
Thank you, Michael, for giving us some great resolutions to start off the new year. Maybe your resolution is just having more resources at your fingertips. We can help you with that too. Our website has a plethora of content, including blogs written by our consultants, webinars presented by our consultants and partners, and case studies. Please join us again next month as we continue to walk through the possibilities of workflows. We look forward to seeing you on this webinar on Wednesday, February 21st. On behalf of Michael, myself, and all of us at LedgeView Partners, we thank you for taking the time to attend our user group webinar today. Have a great day, and we look forward to working with you in 2018.